Hi BookTube. I'm here today with a review of Station 11, a novel. Why do we need that, a novel? I don't know. By Emily St. John Mandel. I just realized that. Why do you have to be told it's a novel? It's obviously a novel. It was in the fiction section in the bookstore. Anyways, so a basic summary of this book. There's a lot going on. I think you can really get what's going on by reading the little flap inside. And you're following quite a few different characters, but I really felt that it was more of a kind of, I felt like it was intended to be a character study on one character in particular. So I'll kind of base my summary around that. Arthur Leander is a Hollywood actor. He decides to take a bit of a break and does a small production of King Lear where he dies on stage. That is not a spoiler. It happens in the first chapter. It's told on the flap. It's not the point of the story. Then, coincidentally, around the same time, there is a pandemic of a flu that wipes out 99.99% of the population, and the book kind of takes place 20 years after this pandemic has wiped out the earth, and we kind of jump back and forth in time from before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after. And the characters are still doing whatever. I don't think it's really important. And all the characters, despite what time frame they're in, are all connected to Leander, and a lot of their times and thoughts, or at least what we see as readers, is spent on him or thinking about him. So that's what I really think. It's a book about Arthur Leander. Yes. So my review. I watched some interviews with her, and she said this was supposed to be a novel about art, and the reason she said it in a dystopian time was because what would be happened if that art was suddenly taken away. Sure. I guess it kind of works. I really felt that she spent more time on the character of Leander and how others felt about him than any other theme or character that may have arisen kind of briefly in the book. I really felt like art was kind of a secondary thing. It was more of a, I guess, a plot device as to oppose to like thoughts on art. There wasn't really any sort of philosophical aspect to the book. It just kind of seemed very plot based. I think really, I really did not, I enjoyed the book enough, but I really felt that there was a lot of issues with it. I really felt like it could have done with some editing. I think that's a problem now, and I found that especially in Harry Potter, is that when authors begin to be able to edit their own book, they don't do as well a job as, say, an external person would, because they know their story very well. The things that they put in they think are important when really they aren't, or the way that they go about saying something they think is important isn't really important. And there are parts in the novel, and I'll show you specific pages here. I got 132 here, where she just kind of has little memos here, like the interview in year 15 continued. But it's obviously an interview format. We really don't need you to say that. And then in page 153, she does it again, a few of the letters. What's kind of obvious, it's Dear V, that's the name of the book that they're talking about and that they're giving an excerpt from, but it's just kind of like, well, obviously it's a few of the letters. And then she does it again later on in the book, but and this part I think could just be kind of taken out completely and be kept as a mystery. It's like, I want to talk about the knife tattoos on Kristen's wrist, but she just kind of writes, the knife tattoos on Kristen's wrist, and then talks about them. It's kind of like she could have done that in a different way, or she could have just taken them out altogether. So I really felt like she was maybe like coddling the reader a little, kind of like, I don't really expect you to be as smart as it needs you to be in order to understand the story. So I'm going to give you these little clues and these little memos that, as a writer personally, I write these memos, but they're memos to me about what needs to happen before the text that comes after it, because I don't write linearly. I kind of jump all over the place when I write. I'm like, oh, here's an idea here that I want to include up here, but I really just want to write this chunk right now. And that's kind of what it felt like I was reading. So I really thought she could have used an external editor to kind of look at it and kind of be like, okay, you don't need this part. There are a few parts about characters that kind of just were just like, oh, that's kind of nice to know, but doesn't really do anything to the story, so, you know, you can take that out, kind of thing. I really didn't feel connected to any of the characters, despite the fact that there were a lot of time spent on them and on their history and kind of trying to develop them. They still kind of felt flat. And I think what this really came from is that she didn't really deal with anything difficult in the story. Things were alluded to, but it was kind of convenient of what she had happen. So, you know, for example, this one guy's dealing with his brother in a wheelchair, and she's just kind of like, nah, I don't want to tell you what happens, but it's kind of like, no, we're not going to deal with that. And then it's like, where is it? At one point, you're told, like, this girl forgets the first year and something bad really happened, but she doesn't remember. And you're not going to find out because she doesn't remember. And it's kind of like, well, why did you even allude to it? Why did you even mention it? Like, there's nothing, like, bad things happen, but they become resolved, kind of thing. And they're not really dealt with, I found, very well. So, like, she didn't really have, I guess, enough experience or enough knowledge, I say, to write about these difficult concepts, so that she had this one idea, and the idea was all that she wanted. I felt like there's no real input from other people. I feel horrible for saying all these bad things, because overall I did enjoy the book. The plot was quite interesting. Even though, again, I felt it carried on for a bit too long. I felt it could have ended maybe like 20 pages sooner than it actually did. Yeah, that's it. I see people call her writing polished, but I didn't really understand what they meant by that. Because I really didn't think it was. I felt like it needed to be edited, you know, polished a bit more there. So yeah, overall I gave the book like a 2.5, because I did find there were a lot of problems with it, and I kind of wanted it to end, and I don't like it when I want books to end. That means I'm really not enjoying it. So that's my thoughts on this book. Let me know if you've read Station 11 or anything else by Emily St. John Mandel and what you thought of it, and if it was any better than Station 11. And remember to keep on reading.